Hi and hello, my name is Cass and welcome to my channel where I read a lot of books and I talk about them. It's that time of the month again, so let's talk about the 10 books that I read this March. We will talk about what my favorite was, what my least favorite was, and we will take a look at how my top 10 for the year stands now. Without further ado, let's get into it. Starting out this month, I read Behooved by M. Stevenson. This was a bit of a buddy read with my little sister, though honestly we finished this super fast. It only took me about 2 days, and honestly, it was lovely. It was quick, easy, just a lot of fun. Behooved is about Bianca. She is a noblewoman who is engaged to the soon-to-be king of another country named Eric, but with an A instead of an E. However, on their wedding night, they're attacked by an assassin, and Eric is turned into a horse. Bianca, lacking other options, flees on his back, and the two discover that there is a larger plot against his crown. So off they go on a journey to undo the spell on him and take back his rightful place as the king. Like I said, I enjoyed this book a lot. It was a fun read. I liked the world. I loved the characters. Me and my sister both weren't super sure how this would go. If this book would be like a bunch of like super cheesy over the topness. But honestly, I think it balanced itself pretty well. It was self-aware that its primary plot was about a man who has been turned into a horse. And don't get me wrong, it embraced the horse jokes so much. But it didn't go too far. It didn't take it itself too seriously, but it didn't like go super unhinged. The characters were pretty realistic. Bianca is actually chronically ill with I don't think it's obviously not stated. She has a gluten intolerance. She has celiac disease. Obviously they don't know within the book what that is. They just know that when she eats certain things, she gets really, really sick and she can't really control her flare-ups. But yeah, it was interesting to see how that affected her. And also like how they talked about it, because they didn't have, the vocabulary that we obviously have in our world. So that was interesting. Also, not unrelated, but kind of unrelated to the main couple, I really liked how sexuality was talked about and treated in this world. Eric and Bianca are heterosexual, of course, but they're a heterosexual couple. Bianca is bisexual. Her sister's a lesbian. There's a lot of other side characters that fall on, different sides of the spectrum. And, like, none of it is treated as this, like, huge thing. It's not, like, a huge big deal. There's, like, a lot of respect for it in the world. A point that I bring up, that I talked about before, I think in my reading vlog, maybe, is, like, Bianca's older sister is like a lesbian, and when Bianca first like is being told she's gonna get engaged to Eric, she's like, well, why can't my sister do this? She's the golden child, you prefer her. And her parents are like, she's a lesbian, she doesn't like men, we can't do that to her. And Bianca's like, shit, you're right, man, that's so fair. So yeah, it was just an accepted thing. It's never like an issue, which is awesome. So yeah, I gave this book 4 stars. It was really fun. I meant to mention this before. As you can see, I have cut and dyed my hair. And I keep looking at it in the camera because like in this light, it looks a lot lighter than it has been, which is nice. But also like I just took a shower, so maybe it's lightened up from me washing it. I don't know. It's hard to tell. The dye did not stick super well this time around, unfortunately. But anyway, I did cut my hair and dyed it, and I love being a redhead. I missed it terribly. So we're probably gonna get it re-dyed and hopefully to the color I want it to be in a couple weeks. Gonna be more purple red, burgundy. Anyway. So next up, I read The Safekeep by Yael van der Wooden. What do I say about this book? It's so odd. It's nothing like I thought it would be like, but that's not like, I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just very odd. So the Safekeep is about Isabel. She is a woman in 1960s Netherlands. She lives alone in her family home. Her brother one day, like, drops off his newest girlfriend to stay with her, despite her, like, protesting because she's, like, heavily introverted. She does not want to hang out with this random person. The girlfriend, her name is Eva, is the opposite of Isabel in, like, every possible way. And Isabel develops this, like, paranoid obsession with her that, like, very quickly turns into, like, infatuation. I think this book's summary doesn't really do it justice at all. I was under the impression that it was, like, some kind of, like, psychological thriller romance kind of thing going on, and I would not call it that. I'm not actually sure what to call it. Like, yeah, there's elements of those things. Primarily, like, Isabella's mind is jumping everywhere constantly. She never, like, finishes a thought. She's just ping-ponging. It kind of felt like she had some sort of, like, OCD, because she, like, hyper fixates on the items in her house, and if they're getting stolen, like, she constantly counts them. She's constantly, like, paranoid that her maid is stealing from her when she's not. But also OCD doesn't, like, quite feel right either, because, like, that behavior she displays eventually kind of starts to, like, die down as things progress, which is not how OCD works. So yeah. Despite the fact that I don't super know how to talk about this book, I do highly recommend it. I can't talk a lot about it because also, like, so much of, like, the details are spoilers. But it talks about a lot of interesting topics, that's for sure. It's very interesting. It very, like, oh, how do I put this into words? It gets into your head. I read this in one night because I could not stop thinking about it. So yeah, I mean, I do recommend it. I gave it 4.5 stars, so if you're in the mood for a very odd read, this is the book to go to. So then I tackled the behemoths that are the first two hierarchy books, The Will of the Many and The Strength of the Few. Oh, these books took me, like, just over 2 weeks to finish. Now, mostly, I will give credit where it's due. That was mostly the second book, and it's not the book's fault. I went into tech basically as soon as I started Strength of the Few, which meant I had, like, almost no time, and sometimes I was only reading, like, 20 to 40 pages a day, which is, you know, really rough when the book is 700 pages long. But I did finish them. It was a little sketchy for a while there, but I finished them. And I am very glad that I did. So, before I gush, because I will gush, this series is about Viz. He is an orphan who is trying to stay under the radar in the Republic of Catan. That's not how you pronounce that. I want to say Catan, and I know it's not Catan because that's a game. It's Catan, I think. Maybe it's Catan. But the Republic of Catan, which is an empire that has taken over literally the whole world. This makes it really hard for him to, like, remain under the radar that he's been trying to stay under, and avoid seating Will. Will being the basis of the magic system in this world. One day he meets a man, I'm sorry in advance for how I'm gonna butcher this. He meets a man named Ulekesser, and Ulekesser adopts him in order to send Viz to the best school in the Republic. Not for Viz's sake at all, but so Viz can uncover the truth about Ulekesser's brother's death many years before. His brother supposedly committed suicide, but Ulekesser has never believed that actually happened. And so begins his journey. So I'm gonna stick to being vague when I talk about these, because I don't want to spoil anything. As much as I really, really want to talk about it, I don't want to spoil anything. I really think you should just read these books and experience it yourself. Keeping my word there, though, I love these books. I loved how smart and crafty Viz was. He thinks his way out of things. He's not afraid to take like these serious risks, and he manages to get out of things, like, even if it's by like the skin of his teeth. And that's not to say he never suffers consequences, because he absolutely does. But overall, he's like very cunning, and I love reading about him as he like works through things and like does his best with the hand he's given, because the world hates this man specifically. He suffers so much. Also, the supporting cast are very compelling. I love the character growth in a lot of them, and also they just make the setting so lively. I love a good school setting. But the second book, of course, moves away from the school setting, which, you know, that's not a spoiler. They graduate. You know, that's made pretty clear that that's going to happen in the first book. But it moving away from the school setting didn't take away, I felt like. So yeah, I cannot wait for the third book. I have to wait until probably like 2027, based on, I am now following James Islington's like updates, which I need to check and see if he's posted a new one. But yeah, I know it's probably gonna be like 2027 before we get the third one, and then like there's probably gonna be 4 books, so we're not gonna get the conclusion until like 2029. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited, please. But I gave the first book 5 stars, and I gave the second book 4.75 stars, which is my first like weird 0.25 rating, but yeah. So next up on the list, I don't have it physically because I read it from the library. I quickly read through If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, just as we opened our own Shakespeare show. Unfortunately, we are doing Much Ado. We're at this point. And this book mostly focuses on like tragedies, so I did miss the mark a little on that. But nonetheless, we soldier on. I would quote Shakespeare here, but I am a backstage person for a reason, my friends. So If We Were Villains is a dark academia book about a group of 7 fourth-year theater students at a prestigious conservatory. As is usual in these kind of books, their relationships grade against each other, they fracture, one of them ends up dead, and the others are reeling in the aftermath. The framing story, not just at the front and end, but like at every like act break, is that Oliver, who is our point of view character, has just been released from prison after 10 years for supposedly committing the crime of killing this person. And he tells the now retired detective that led the case originally the true story. So this book had a lot of parts that I liked and some that I didn't. The characters and their relationships were, of course, the best part. They usually are in these books. But also in some ways, like, the most frustrating parts. The choices that they made in several parts just, like, grated on me. I'm like, come on, guys, don't be stupid. They're they're surprisingly less holier than thou than one might expect, given the genre. But they do spend most of their time quoting Shakespeare at each other, so there's that. To be fair, I am a theater person. This doesn't super surprise me. It sounds about right. They are, they're college students at a conservatory. And they're, like, the top dogs. So, like, not super shocked. In any case, I can't go into a lot of detail without spoilers. But I will say I wish the book hadn't waited until the end to actually go into depth on Oliver and James's relationship. James is, like, Oliver's best friend. I clocked the homoerotic, like, undertones immediately. And while it does go from, like, subtext to text, it really doesn't get discussed enough within, like, the book itself. It's, like, it's kind of at the very end, and you're like, oh, okay. And that's honestly how I feel about a lot of the book. Things just kind of happen, and it's like nothing's happening and everything is happening all at the same time. It's very odd. It's very hard to describe how I felt about this one. I did give it 3.5 stars. Mostly because unfortunately I don't see it sticking with me a lot. It was an enjoyable read, but I don't know. They're just, yeah, alas. Next, to break up the thrillers coming before and next, I read The Innkeeper's Song by Peter Beagle. This book was one of my sister's recommendations. Peter Beagle is one of her all-time favorite authors. So this book is about an ensemble of different characters as their lives intersect at an inn. And they're all forced to deal with the fallout of this one wizard's war with another. It features multiple points of view from the cast, and occasionally some, like, random characters that get, like, one chapter as they, like, all deal with their own secrets and the consequences. I guess I don't really know how I feel about this book. I didn't mind it. The prose was definitely the part that caught me the most off guard. It wasn't, like, difficult to understand or anything. I just didn't enjoy it. The first person combined with, like, the rapidly swapping points of views was a little bit difficult. And the chapters from the fox's point of view were the hardest part. Yes, there is a fox who gets a point of view. He can also shapeshift into a man and some other ancient creature. Don't ask too many questions. I did like the characters for the most part. That was the biggest plus of the book. I really liked two of the three women that are really at the center of the plot. Lal and Netrini, I think is how you pronounce it. Their relationship is very fun and very interesting. But yeah, overall it was fine. Nothing that's going to stick with me, I think, but not a bad story by any means. So I gave it a 3.5 stars. Next up, I read the One of Us is Lying series by Karen M. McManus. These books revolve around the town of Bayville, California, where the local high school is just full of people who thrive on gossip and, like, secrets. One of the teenagers, Simon, he runs a gossip page for exactly that. One day, he and 4 other students end up in detention together, and Simon ends up dead. The death is ruled a murder, and suddenly the 4 students in detention are at the top of the suspect list. The following books continue with, like, following Simon's legacy before finally wrapping up everything in the last book. I really liked these books. I thought all 3 were pretty strong, and I liked the cast of characters. The second book integrates more characters for the second mystery that happens. I liked them a lot. I wasn't, like, mad about the, like, quote-unquote replacements. And the final book wraps things up very nicely and, like, combines the casts in a way that makes sense. And everything just ties together and wraps things up in a way that makes sense. Yes, I am looking at the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I am still not over it. I don't know if I'll ever be over it. In any case, I gave all 3 of these books 4.5 stars. They were solid all the way through. They were easy reads. They're exciting enough to make me want to read each of them in one day. I read the whole series in 3 days, 1 book per day, because I just couldn't put them down. I was like, okay, I'll get to the halfway point, and I got to the halfway point, and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna keep reading. I'm really invested. So they were really good. The ending is a little, not bad by any means, but definitely a little, like, neat, tied up with a bow, everything's happy now. And I'm like, that's not really realistic, but, like, you know what do I care? It was a good book series. And finally, to wrap up the month, I read A Stage Set for Villains by Shannon J. Spann. This is her debut novel. And I have been looking forward to this. I actually really wanted to finish the last series as much as I enjoyed it, like, as quickly as I could, so that I could have plenty of time to read this before the month ended. And it worked out for me. I had, like, 5 days, so I took my time. So this book is about Riven. She is a girl who lives in a world that are, like, normal people are terrified of these beings called players. Players are these immortal, godlike beings that are trapped in what is called the Playhouse, a building that they can teleport, and then wherever they go, they put on these shows. However, they are also, like, cruel and violent. They make the north side of the land of Theatron, where Riven lives in the north, like, very frightened of them. There is a treaty that was signed, like, 500 years ago between the Playhouse and the north, and it's very close to being over, meaning things are about to get crazy. Riven is dragged into the casting call to select a new player, and things get even crazier from there. Honestly, that description doesn't super do the book justice. It has so many layers, there's twists and turns, there's a lot more to the players than, like, initially told, of course. A lot of things to unravel and learn about. Riven is, like, cursed by a player in her youth. And that's, like, the whole reason she goes to the playhouse. There's so much going on in this book. And in case you can't tell, I super loved it. It was amazing. The beginning was a little, like, I almost don't want to say difficult for me, because that's not quite right. Mainly, it's so hard for me to wrap my head around, like, a world that is so devoid of art and color and song, when, like, that's, like, most of my life. Like, even outside of the fact that I, like, obviously I work in theater, but also, like, I write in my spare time, I record these videos in my spare time, I consume so many books, I love music. Like, art is such a big deal in my life that it's so weird for me to imagine a world where there's, like, you don't have any of that outside of these, like, players. But yeah, Riven, on top of that, Riven at first had some parts that started to make me kind of, like, roll my eyes. I'm like, oh god, okay, you're one of these protagonists. But, like, honestly, that didn't last very long. Like, her flaws as a character came through, and it worked really well with the story and who she was. Like, I feel like I can't just say that and not, like, she has that thing where, like, a lot of female characters, especially nowadays, like, their main quote-unquote flaw is their, like, female rage. And, like, don't get me wrong, I love a good female rage book, I just don't think it's always written well. And there was so much emphasis on she's angry all the time and she doesn't think because she's angry, and I'm like, god, she's an idiot. She keeps making these stupid mistakes that if she would think for 2 seconds she wouldn't do. But then, like, it wasn't just a thing that was a thing in her character. It was, like, actually worked into the story. It was addressed. It was talked about. I can't talk a ton about it because, like, then I start getting into spoiler territory, because, like, you have to read this book to understand a lot too, because I can't talk about the major huge twists that come at, like, the midway point and then at the end. Like, it's crazy. It's just crazy. So, but yeah, so, like, initially I was like, oh no, she's gonna be one of those YA protagonists where, like, you know, everything always works out for her, but also she's being an idiot the whole time. But no, that was not the case at all. Thank goodness, I was relieved by that. Anyway, there's a lot I want to say about this book. There's so much I want to talk about because I love this book so much, but it veers into spoilers so bad, and I can't ruin it. You have to read it yourself. It's so good. It's fantastic. And honestly, it's one of the most unique books I've read in a while. Like, I've never read anything like it, especially once you get into, like, the twist areas. Like, it's crazy. I obviously rated this book 5 stars. And that is it for my books of the month. Let's talk real quick about my favorite and least favorite books of the month. For favorite, it was a real close toss-up between the Hierarchy series and A Stage Set for Villains. In the end, though, I do have to give it to A Stage Set for Villains. This book was just perfect for me as a theater girl. I love the world. I would happily go back into this world if Shannon J. Span ever wrote more. This is a standalone. But God, I would love to learn more about the world and the things that were mentioned that were never elaborated on. As for least favorite, unfortunately, I would have to say it is The Innkeeper's Song by Peter Beagle. By no means did I hate this book. I want to be clear about that. But it definitely dragged a little for me. The prose was a little odd. It was just not for me. Least favorite this month is really just a book I wasn't as super into as I got through it, but it lives here nonetheless. So with that done, we are going to move on to the top 10. Did any books make it onto the top 10 this month? Yeah, absolutely, they did, in case you couldn't tell by how I talked about them. I'm sure you could guess. So let's take a look at the old list first. So on the old list, starting from bottom to top, we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Beholder, Catabasis, Good Spirits, Good Girl, Bad Blood, A Theory in Dreaming, A Study in Drowning, In the Dream House, Iron Widow, and my number one, The Shepherd King duology. So let's take a look at how the top 10 stands now at the end of March. So as you can see, there have been several jumps. So let's go through the list real quick and how it has changed. So now at number 10, we have Good Spirits. Number 9, One of Us is Lying, has taken the spot. Number 8, The Safekeep. Number 7, A Theory in Dreaming. Number 6, A Study in Drowning. Number 5, In the Dream House. Number 4, Iron Widow. And at number 3, we have The Shepherd King duology. It has fallen not one but 2 slots. And then the new top 2. At number 2, we have the Hierarchy series by James Islington, which is The Will of the Many and the Strength of the Few. And then we have a stage set for villains at number 1. So as you can see, so last month I was like, oh, I don't want to put Iron Widow above the Shepherd King duology because it's not completed yet. Unlike the Shepherd King duology, obviously the Will of the Many, or the Hierarchy series, ended up overtaking it, but honestly that series was so good that I couldn't help it. It was good enough. It was a close battle between the Hierarchy series and a stage set for villains. I waffled with where they would land for a minute. However, I did end up settling on a stage set for villains to be number 1 because it is standalone and is complete. On top of that, I did have, not many, but I did have a couple nitpick issues with the Strength of the Few. So, especially not necessarily knowing how the rest of the series is going to go, I decided a stage set for villains would be number 1 for now. Obviously, I mean, the Justice of One isn't going to come out probably until next year. In which case, then we'll be on the top 10 of 2027, and that'll be a whole different conversation. But regardless, this is where we sit now on the top 10 books. So we will see if April changes that. And with that, that is the end of our March wrap-up. Thank you for hanging out with me as I chatted about my new reads. Let me know what you thought of these books in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!